Welcome to the Scare Guy Show, the official podcast of thescareguy.com, where we as filmmakers discuss horror films, haunt events, spooky news, and anything that's scary fun, which this week means that we are discussing the awesome convention, Days of the Dead. It's a series of conventions across the country, but this year we went to the one in Las Vegas in May. It was the first one that we've been to this year, and I got to tell you, it was a good one. My name is Jim Fry. I am your host. I'm one of your co-hosts here for the Scare Guy Show. And as we zip around here, who else do we have in the room with us today? Cheese?
I'm Cheeseman here with scareguy.com, social media director and screenwriter.
That's right. And we have a very special guest, first time in the horror rooms with us today. Who is this?
This is Charlie Hoover, film director, writer, and currently working editor.
Charlie's actually taking a break. He's in an 11-hour editing marathon right now, and he's breaking in the middle of it. He has to go edit it as soon as we're done here. And thank you for being so patient with us today, Charlie. I know that we've been.
No, thank you guys so much for having me on. It's a real pleasure. So you guys are awesome.
One of the reasons, well, there's a couple of reasons. Charlie's a filmmaker like us. He loves making films. He likes it. He likes a good scare, a good, well-told story. He likes good monster movies. But also, he went with us to the Days of the Dead convention in Vegas. So we thought it'd be great to get his inside perspective. But Luke, we need people to know who Charlie is. Don't we have some questions for Charlie?
Where did
Who's
he
this
come
Charlie?
from?
Dude, what was that commercial of a couple years ago? Charlie, you bit my finger.
So yeah, I mean, I have directed commercials, but not that. I did not do anything with that YouTube phenomenon, the Charlie bit my finger thing, but it's fun. So
You should do
so a little bit more about me. I mean, you can check out some of my work. I have a YouTube channel, Urban Owl Entertainment. Just if you can't find it, Urban Owl Entertainment, just type in pandemic in YouTube, and it's going to be like one of the first things. So it's an older film of mine. So I've got a bunch of stuff on there, movies I've done, commercials I've done, videos, and just random fun stuff that I've directed and shot and things like that. So
wait. If we put in pandemic right now, yeah. I have a feeling we're going to get a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, right. Well, with the pandemic, it shot up. That was actually my thesis film that I did when I went to film school years ago. And the thing's got probably a couple 100,000 views now. I haven't checked it in a while, but that's probably going to be the most viewed thing. But yeah, Urban Owl Entertainment shouldn't be too hard to find. That's
pretty cool. And Charlie's also like part of a screenwriting filmmakers group that me and Cheeseman are a part of. And so we get to read his stuff. I do have one question that we kind of always ask everybody on their very first Scare Guy show. When did it start for you? Where did your admiration for the horror and thriller genre begin?
Oh gosh, probably with Jaws. I mean, Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I mean, a funny little anecdote. When I was growing up, I don't even think I was a teenager yet. I was somewhere in the age of like 9 years old, between 7 and 8, 9. And I watched it so many times that my parents, in particular, my mom actually hid the VHS away from me because she's like, it's unhealthy for you to watch this movie this many times. And I ended up finding it. They had stuck it on top of the refrigerator and they were like, oh, okay, whatever. Just let them keep watching it. So, but yeah, I mean, I like the genre a lot. And I mean, for me, I actually really enjoy the supernatural stuff more. So like, I love like the ghost story, like gothic horror is kind of where I really get my kick when it comes to horror, like suspense stuff. I really do enjoy like Halloween and of course like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and all those. But I would say that, yeah, there you go. There you go.
Well, there's Michael.
Yeah, I could go on about those films, and particularly the first of those films in those series that really just made them what they are, and then they just kept those things going. But the first movies in those series are always like they're amazing. And but for me, I would say like some of my favorite movies within the horror genre would be 1941, The Wolfman. I love A Turn of the Screw, 1961, and I think it was just The Haunting of Hill House, which was the first 1963 movie. And I
House
also
on Haunted Hill.
not House on Haunted Hill, but The Haunting of Hill House.
The Haunting.
The Haunting, yeah. So
okay, because The Haunting of Hill House was the TV show.
The Haunting of Hill House, so it's based on the Shirley Jackson novel, which is of the same name, and which came out in the 50s, I believe. And so it's The Haunting of Hill House, and the first movie was, I believe, 1963. And so
where was it filmed? Right here, real close here in Los Feliz, isn't it?
So that's House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, okay. We're getting them mixed up.
Price, yeah, that's the House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price. Which the original is a classic, and then they remade it in the late '90s, early 2000s. Which it's very much a product of its time if you watch it. I mean, yeah, it's fun, but it's like they really upped the gore and they went crazy with it and everything. You know, trying to compete with like straightforward slasher genre stuff.
Right.
But another movie I really enjoy that's of the ghost stuff is the What Lies Beneath by Robert Zemeckis. So yeah, I think that's a great movie. I know some people kind of don't love it, but I'm like, nah, it's great. I think it's like if Hitchcock,
the Harrison Ford movie,
the one with Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah,
I attempted to see it like 2 or 3. I need to watch the whole thing because I kept taking a girl on a date that had like a curfew. And then I could never like finish the movie. I had to keep like leaving early to get her home.
Really?
And then I had to get to a football game that I was playing. Like, so I never got to like see it all the way through, but I kept taking this girl to go see it back when I was a youngin'.
Oh, dude, well, you gotta finish it. Yeah, I mean, I remember going to see that in theaters, and so being a younger guy in the '90s, it was like, the popcorn bag. It's like, oh my god, But so that had an impression. And then another movie, I don't know if you guys know about it, but it was the made-for-TV movie on Rose Red, which is based off of one of Stephen King's novels.
I didn't know there was one. I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, it came out in the early 2000s, and it was like a 2-part. Like a mini series. I think they might on TV, they might have broken up into 4 episodes or something. But if you get it on home video, I have like the DVD and it's just 2 discs, and it's like the entire length of it is, I think it's like close to 5 hours or maybe a little longer. But I could be wrong. Don't quote me on it. But it's, so they made it like a mini series. That's really fun. And so I've enjoyed that. So, but yeah, man. So that's kind of and I like the Conjuring stuff. Like that's.
I wanted to ask you because have you seen the most recent Conjuring film, The Devil Made Me Do It?
I have not seen that one yet, but I've seen obviously the ads for it. So. Oh
my gosh, Luke, you liked it, didn't you? The Devil Made Me Do It. Have you seen the most recent Conjuring?
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, and we'll probably have one of the actresses on our show that actually was in that movie. The one that was the mother to the little boy.
Oh, that's right.
She was in one of our projects that was shot recently. So I need to reconnect with her and see if we can get her on.
That's right. Me and Luke celebrated a project. We wrote a series, a season 2 of a streaming series that she was a part of, and it wrapped production, and it was really cool. All right, guys.
And real quick, speaking of Jaws, I just want to promote, because I think we're releasing this here this week, and we're going to be re-releasing or re-promoting our Jaws episodes, and I'm hoping to be releasing a new episode that we filmed with the mayor's son himself, talking about his dad,
which is very cool.
Murray Hamilton's son. So.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like Jaws. I know it's a horror movie, but for me, it doesn't feel like a horror movie.
It's a monster movie. It's not a horror movie. It is kind of like it's also a slasher movie if you want to think about it. It is.
And it's also like an adventure film. I mean, it's got several tones going on there. I mean, Spielberg was able to balance all that very well, and
it's amazing.
It's such a great movie.
And for those of you who might just be listening, Charlie is sitting with his back to an eclectic wall behind him, and there's Jaws posters, and if you look on his left shoulder, there's a big shark. Your left shoulder. There's a big shark jaws up there hanging up near the top of the ceiling. Yeah.
It's some Mako Jaws.
Yeah.
Anyways, Jaws is something that we really love around here. I know it's one of Luke's favorite films. And yeah, if you guys get a chance, check out over the 4th of July weekend, we're going to be releasing a special package of 10 different videos, 10 different interviews that we did with people that were connected to the original Jaws film in 1975. So if you love Jaws, check it out. We had so much fun doing that stuff, and it was really good. So anything else, Luke, before we move on?
I say we jump into it.
All right. Days of the Dead. Days of the Dead is the Days of the Dead conventions. It is a series of conventions that their goal is not to just be an autograph convention, because there's a bunch of conventions that exist. You just go and you get autographs. We have the autograph show here in Hollywood, but Days of the Dead, their primary goal is to bring back the concept of the genre convention being a welcoming social gathering of like-minded friends and fans, and not just another pay-to-go autograph show that has become all too common and impersonal. So I got to tell you, this was my very first time going to a Days of the Dead convention, and it was my first convention, and I think, Luke, maybe yours, and I don't know about Charlie, I didn't ask you, is my first convention in nearly a year and a half. It was the first.
Yeah, first for me of this kind, and then also it's the first one in a while. Not my first convention in general, but I had a great time. It was a lot of fun.
Great. All right, and just since we are enjoying some adult beverages here, we are not driving. What are you drinking there, Charlie?
Well, I am driving, so I'm going light.
All right.
Nice.
Cheeseman, you got what are you drinking?
We should get money or free beer from this. Painkiller from Frogtown Brewery.
Yep. And let me tell you, this is one of the best tasting beers I've ever had. It's from Paperback Brewery in Glendale. Robot Strip Club Imperial Hazy IPA.
That's awesome.
It's crazy name. All right, let's talk about Days of the Dead. First of all, Luke, what was your impression of the film? I'm saying, what's your impression of this film? But no, what was your impression of the convention?
Well, first of all, I was in Vegas, which was really cool, and it was kind of in an older part of Vegas, which has a lot of cheap gambling, which we didn't really get a lot of time to do.
That was here in the Plaza Hotel, and
yeah.
Those of you, if you ever saw Back to the Future Part 2, it looks very similar to Biff's Plaza Hotel.
But yeah, it was a smaller convention, took place on, I think it was the 3rd floor of the hotel. So It was pretty cool. The amount of, because usually like smaller conventions, you might have like one cool thing, or not to diss on them, but there's a lot of times not like a lot of cool things back to back, where they just, for being so small, they like had some just like very mainstream stuff. So the reason the Jaws advertisement was there, originally Richard Dreyfuss was supposed to be there doing a signing, but unfortunately that didn't happen, but they still had autographs you could buy. But the cool thing was, I mean, for some of the giant fandoms, they had a Halloween panel, Friday the 13th panel, Nightmare on Elm Street panel. Alice Cooper was there with Corey Taylor of Slipknot, which was just like, wow, like have this many things, plus a Friday the 13th panel. So it like hit all the big major panels. That's
Look at this.
Nightmare on Elm Street one there. It was Dream Warriors Part 3. They got a lot of the young kids a lot of them survived that one, but then some in the following. But it was cool to kind of get them together and talk about that. And the floor was cool. They had a lot of the stars from E.T., which was amazing to kind of go around and just talk to these people, and everybody was super friendly. And then David Naughton, who is the lead in American Werewolf in London, he was there, and we got an exclusive interview with him that we'll be showing probably at the
it's
end
a
of the
film
show.
that's celebrating its 40th anniversary this year, so that was really cool. And we are going to dive in and talk in specifics about the panels that we were able to attend. Anything else? Because I'm going to just share a couple of pictures while you guys talk a little bit about the convention itself.
One other thing I just want to say is that a lot of times at conventions you have multiple panels and different rooms going on at the same time. So it's like, oh crap, which one do I go to? But they only had one panel room, but pretty solid panels that were just happening in one room. And I don't think anybody was not able to get into a panel. I don't know if Friday was different because we didn't unfortunately make it for Friday when the ET panel was, but everything else we went to, we were able to even get like good seats. So like that's another cool thing about these smaller conventions is you get very like front row, and we were able to ask questions personally to the people, and they just kind of went around the room and did a lot of Q&A.
And I do want to say, send out a thank you to that hashtag show and Junior Felix for helping us get this set up. He's one that was in contact with the organizers over there at the Days of the Dead and got us invitations to go and check it out. And I'm very appreciative of that. I'm very appreciative. It was a great time. Charlie, I'm going to share. Wait, this was I knew I was at a horror convention when I hopped into the elevator and it was filled up with ghouls. This is fantastic. And then a little bit of the convention floor right there. And like Luke said, there was a bunch of different panels going on right here. This is the panel for the Dream Nightmare on Elm Street.
Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street.
That in just a second.
Well, I have to say real quick, Jim, like one of the ghouls is Lady D from Resident Evil Village. So Resident Evil 8 right there on the left. Yeah. So that was her. Yeah, from the video game. So that's cool. Yeah, like Capcom completely underestimated how popular she was going to be. So anyway, I don't want to give anything away about the game, but it's pretty cool. So
yeah. No, that's pretty cool. But I just want to share a little bit. Like this is something kind of cool. Look at this cosplay. Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck.
That's a child. Like
it's a little kid.
Such a good costume.
Oh wow.
This one's kind of cool.
Of course, that's non-alcoholic and probably not like
yeah. Like, where's his kid? Where's his kid's parents? Like what's going on?
This is a cool cosplay from what movie?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original.
Yeah,
that's right. And look at it. This is a cool shirt. It's like the Michael Jackson Thriller album cover, but it's Michael Myers and it's killer. And it's awesome. He's laying down. He has the knife.
That guy looks similar to you, Jim. Maybe you need to get that shirt. It looks good on you.
Maybe that is me. Who knows? But then there was something else that was kind of cool about this convention. And this is, let me see, right here, the picture I'm showing. This right here, this is the lady. This is Judith Myers herself. Wait a second.
We'll be interviewing towards the end of the month here in July.
She's agreed to come on the show, so I'm so stoked. I got this great. She did an audit, and I have a light shining. It's right there. There's an autographed photo of her. Hi, it says, Jim, with love, Sandy Johnson, Judith Myers. I love this photo that she's by her tombstone from. By the way, those of you who don't know who this is, she was in the original Halloween film. Mm-hmm. She was the very first death. That was Michael Myers' older sister that fateful Halloween night back in the 60s that he went and killed. And I do at the Charlie said something about his favorite movies are usually the first in the series. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
except for Dream Warriors, which I think was a very valiant addition to that series. Cheeseman, what is this right here? What's going on? What's this picture?
So I met Susan Baclini, who played Chrissy from the original Jaws, the first victim of the great white Bruce shark.
Yep.
So she was there doing a signing, and we're hoping to have her on as well at some point. We talked to some of her publicist people, but they had a replica of the shark head there that someone made and did very well, like to a high level of like a Greg Nicotero, like just replication. Plus they had some barrels. So for $5, you could do a photo op by the shark. And then Susan, you could get, an autograph or a picture with. So pretty cool.
Oh, I think it was awesome.
I hadn't, like, out of all the people in Jaws, like, I had a hard time getting a hold of her because when we did the series of the other shows, but now we were able to kind of make direct contact, and she's very open to the convention scene and all that. Might even do cameo. I'm not sure if she's on there or not. But.
She was really sweet and approachable. And I have to say, like, some of these conventions, they really will kind of charge a lot for stuff like that. This one, they were very reasonably priced. Like, I was like, oh, wow, okay, so you guys actually care about the fans.
Especially Henry, from ET. Like, I mean,
yeah, I was like, what?
I would have thought he would have been like $100, or I forget how much it actually was, but I think it was only.
It wasn't nearly that much.
Yeah.
Two things that I did pick up while I was there, and let me do this right here, and right here, my favorite Disney character is Stitch. And my favorite horror icon is Michael Myers. Here, Stitch is giving him the business. It's a picture. It's this guy that did this, and I was looking to see if I had his name here. Yes, he's a storyboard artist for Disney and EA Games. His name is Jonathan Hallett, Hallett. And he also works for Nickelodeon and Netflix. This guy is great, and this is a great piece of artwork. And one more thing, as those of you who watch the show know, one of my favorite characters of all time is the creature from the Black Lagoon. And this is kind of...
That's a pretty big figure.
This is a great figure.
That's a good
And let me read from the back. It's from Marty Abrams, a.k.a. the father of the action figure, has relaunched these figures in response to the overwhelming demand. It's Mego, pronounced Mego, and I'm sorry, I was saying it wrong, was started by his father, David Abrams, in 1954 and named by his younger brother. They sold over 20 million of these things, and now they're back.
So that's how J.J. Abrams got his money.
Look at this cool packaging on the back. I just love this. So I am going to take this out of the package. I know. I just hate doing that.
That's nice packaging, though.
You're very conflicted about that.
Yeah, sometimes, the packaging, can make it even better a lot of times how they're doing it for collectors.
So, Charlie, before we dive into the talking about the panels, did you get a chance to look at the floor at all? Is there anything that you saw that was kind of cool, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, outside of, meeting Henry Thomas and seeing Dee Wallace again, I actually met her at a Back to the Future convention over a decade ago. And so that was fun reacquainting with her. And then Robert McNaughton, who plays Michael in E.T. So for me, that was huge because E.T. is one of my favorite movies. And so meeting them, and Henry was very, very, very gracious and very down to earth. We were just talking about his family and his kids and things like that. He was really cool. And I got a poster signed for one of my closest friends, which E.T.'s her favorite movie. So that was really cool. And just a lot of art too. There were a lot of people there, and also a lot of folks from other movies. And so I remember seeing, I can't remember his name, but he plays John Connor in Terminator 3: Rise of the Machine. I know. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I don't think that movie's that bad, but it's got some amazing set pieces. So that was kind of fun to see him. And
at least they didn't kill off John Connor like some of these other newer Terminator movies. Turn him into a bad guy.
I'm going to be honest, not to go on a big tangent here, but I really just I don't know if you guys have seen the alternate ending to Terminator 2. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, check it out on YouTube. I'm this is a great ending. I personally wish that had been the ending to the movie now, especially in hindsight, looking back at what the series has gone. I'm end it, just end it there. It's a great alternate ending. Check it out on YouTube if no one's seen it. But basically,
it mentions Michael Jackson.
But yeah, so there were a lot of artists there with their personal art, so that was really neat to see all going around and looking at all the different displays and things like that. Just a lot of talented artists, and with all of their horror stuff, and then there was a lot of action figures, souvenirs, figurines, all this stuff. So that was the nerd in me was leaping out with excitement. And and also the fact that we got to, I know we'll get to it, but American Werewolf in London. So that was really cool.
That was amazing. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the weekend, besides meeting Sandy Johnson, Miss Judith Myers. But yeah, that one was cool. And
he was so nice.
Guys, let's jump into some of these interviews we did. We'll do. You want to say David Naughton for let's
do him at the end. Yeah, just because it was the best recording sound quality, and I don't want to get people's expectations up, and then they're like, "Oh, what happened to the sound?" So we'll save that one for last.
Well, let's talk first. The first panel that I think we were able to go into was for Nightmare on Elm Street, the Dream Warriors. They did a reunion. They had, they had, let me see, I had a picture. Let's pull this back up. So from the left, there was Ken Sagos, who plays Kincaid, Penelope Cedro, who plays Jennifer, Rodney Eastman, who plays Joey, Ira Hayden played Will. Bradley Gregg played Philip. And at the end, that's Jennifer Rubin. She played Taryn. So we have, I think we have a clip from this panel, correct? Right, Luke?
We do.
All right. Let's go ahead. And do you remember what the question was?
You asked the question, so we will get you asking the question with this, which would be nice.
All right, let's check it out.
Roll the clip.
This is for Rodney and Ken. You guys, you were in both films, parts 3 and parts 4. What was the difference between the two, and were you happy or pissed that you had to both come back and die? I mean,
well, the difference was the chick.
Yeah, but you think that I would have felt like, wow, it was so much better. I had so many more lines. But I shot my part. I actually working lasted about 6 days on part 4 versus 6 weeks on part 3, and I missed. I love Tuesday, but I miss Patricia. And he was in love with
His dressing room was right next to my dressing room. There were 2 different directors, and what I learned, first of all, by doing a horror film, for acting, you learn how to act because a lot of the effects are not there. What I learned from Chuck was different from what I learned from Rennie. Chuck took time with us. Rennie was trying to get to the next group of kids. Not disrespectful, just trying to get to the next group of kids. You had 6 days. I just had 4. That was the difference.
That was cool.
Yeah, and I apologize. The sound, just because of the room, it was a lot better there. Once they kind of got the convention going, everything sounded a lot better in person. It was a little hard to capture it on iPhone, so I apologize for that. You're just going to have to go to a Days of the Dead yourself to see some of these panels, but it was a very entertaining panel. Lots of just fun banter between these old friends.
It was cool. We were able to catch up with Ken Sagos, who played Kincaid, later at his table, and also with Penelope Cedra, who played Jennifer. There's the 2 right there in the end. And do you remember, Luke, the conversations we had with them? They were great.
Yeah, they were super nice, very friendly, and hopefully, some of them will individually come on or as a group, but probably individually, just so we can kind of get more time with them, on our podcast. And Ken he's working on some project now, so those who are a fan of him, he's trying to get some other stuff off the ground, so you'll see him as an actor here and stuff here currently as well. And he was just a big personality, and those who are watching get to see he was wearing a Freddy scarf with the Freddy sweater colors, and he was a lot of fun, and just kind of hearing him talk about playing both movies. And I think he even talked about, because he had the death in the second one where he kind of faced off with Freddy in the car junkyard.
But remember, the thing that was kind of cool, and he talked about it during the panel, back in the 80s, everybody wasn't so aware of representation and diversity in films and whatnot. He was one of the first kind of like black actors that got such a big role in a horror film, and he was not killed. He
survived till the next movie.
Yeah, until the next movie, and his death scene was huge, and that was a big deal. And he talked about it, and he is so funny, though. He is so funny. Yeah, and then Penelope, she's not doing a lot of films anymore. She has a charity that she's very into, and some different causes that she's into, and that is really cool. So you can follow her on social media as well to find out what she's keeping up with. Charlie, were you in that channel?
Yeah. So I was with you guys, and it was really neat to see them and hear them talk about all the different stuff and the various questions that were asked. And one thing that I think next to the first one, Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, that this one I think is probably one of the more of the following that I really enjoyed the most, because especially like in the third act of the first film, when Nancy's like doing battle against Krueger, like they took the notion of the dream, almost like the Inception kind of stuff, right? Like Nolan ripping off this, but where their battle, and they took the dynamic and the way that those mechanics work, and they really expanded it and like almost did a whole movie out of it. And I thought that like going back, I haven't seen it in a while, but thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, that's a really fun movie. I think it's outside of the first, it's definitely, you know, one of the second, if not right there at the top of all the like the best of all the different Nightmare on Elm Street movies that have come out since. So.
Speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street, Luke, we should put in a plug here. We have a really cool interview coming up with one of the stars of Nightmare on Elm Street's Part 4 and 5, Lisa Wilcox. She played Alice in Parts 4 and 5. She is a pleasure. She is so lovely, so wonderful, and so funny. So that one, you guys, if you get a chance, please follow us here at the Scare Guy Show. Follow us here, like us. Tell your friends to follow us, and you'll be listening. You'll be hearing our discussion with Lisa Wilcox coming up soon. All right, what's our next panel, Cheese?
Well,
let's
go to the Halloween one. So they were going to have Judith Myers. She was going to be on the panel, but she kind of just stuck to the signing and is now giving us an exclusive interview at the end of the month again,
which is cool.
But the guy.
Tony Moran.
Yeah, Tony Moran, who was the actual face of Michael Myers in the brief scene where his mask is torn off. And we're pretty sure he's in the new Halloween movies that are coming out too, because he's in the IMDb for that. So got to see him there and do a panel talking all about Halloween. And Jim, take it from here.
Yeah, what's cool about this is one I wanted to make sure we didn't miss, because for those of you who are fans of the film and fans of the Halloween universe, you know that there's been some drama of late with Tony. He did a series of interviews. It was almost like he was just trying to destroy any goodwill that he had with any of the fans, because he basically said, people that love the Halloween movies, I thought they were stupid. How stupid can they be? These are dumb films. I don't know what I was doing. And he kept on insulting people almost. And he kind of, in a way, I think he finally came to his senses. You see, he's sitting here drinking a beer, so maybe he.
Go ahead. Seeing him on a panel, that's just kind of the way he talks. Because he just kept talking about like, how the heck did this little movie thing become this big thing? And it was more kind of the way he was talking, just how surprised he was of where it kind of went.
Exactly.
All that. And I think it was misread that he was ungrateful or somehow didn't understand fans, because when that's just, he's a very just like normal guy, like just says whatever's on his mind kind of a thing, not any kind of harshness. He was just probably like, super little movie. I can't believe it's got all these fans going crazy about it. Blah, blah, blah. Like he was probably just talking. And
he was also very grateful when we were there. Like he kept talking about how blessed he was. He was just like, I'm just this unlucky schmuck that was in this thing and it exploded. And he's like, and I was like, that's really cool. Like he seemed like a really like humble guy and really appreciative for like the blessing that it was for him to be in that film.
So let's hear what he said about it. This is where he kind of cleared it up a little bit, sort of.
You know what I mean? I want you guys to have a good time. And my own personal feelings of being uncomfortable and shit like that means jack shit as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm not saying it's like a job, but it is a job, because without you guys, I'm nobody, right? If you guys didn't like Halloween, this wouldn't be happening like that. It's not, I mean, even John Carpenter will probably tell you the same thing. It's like, you guys are the ones that did it, not me, to make the movie popular and all that. So my own shyness or whatever, that's going on with me has nothing, there's no place for it here.
Yeah, I think he was definitely doing a little bit of backtracking, and I think he did well there. He did well. Yeah. I noticed you added in you bleeped out. He was a colorful language guy, that's for sure. So that we don't have to be registered on Apple iTunes as an explicit podcast. That's great.
Yeah, I thought
He had some more to say, and I think Luke, you asked him a question, right?
Yeah, I asked him a question about Jamie Lee Curtis. So we're gonna run that clip, and then we'll talk a little more about our good time there.
All right.
What was it like working with Jamie Lee Curtis?
And I haven't seen her, met her, again, but from what I hear, she's still the same, down to earth, just really a cool chick, just really cool, She, just really uniquely herself and just down to earth, just great. And everybody was. John Carpenter, the same thing. I mean, I can't even imagine being as brilliant as this guy, right? And still being as humble as he is, And he'll tell you, and this is what I've been told, he tells people, it's like, it wasn't like he was trying to make some brilliant film, he was just having a fun time. And look what he did, just by just fucking around, you know what I mean? Unbelievable. Yeah.
I love it. The thing I learned, I didn't know that his sister was Erin Moran, who was, I'm getting that right, from the Happy Days series. She was Joni from she's Joni, and Joni loves Chachi. She's Richie's little sister. She is Richie's little sister. I never knew that was his sister, and she passed away not recently, a few years back. That's crazy. I never knew that.
The story he told why he was there, which
tell this.
Unfortunately, we don't have time to show that. I'm sure we got some of that. Was that his sister saw him at a convention or somewhere where they were both doing a signing, and she had no idea that he played Michael Myers, and she went up and looked at him, looked up at the sign saying Michael Myers, then back down, what? Had no clue that he had played Michael Myers, and this was years and years later, decades later. But because it sounds like they weren't super close, but maybe hopefully towards kind of the end we're a little closer or whatever. But she just had no clue he was Michael Myers until she randomly ran into him at a convention that they didn't know they'd both be at.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that was a funny story. And he's just he was describing when that happened, and it's she comes and she's doing the double take, and he's like,
mm-hmm.
yeah. It's
Anyways, I'm so glad we got a chance to see him, because he's been causing quite a bit of controversy in the Halloween circles these days. And like Luke says, I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he has a very colorful way of talking. He's just not, he's not one of these slick Hollywood types that is on a stage and has a publicist guarding every word. He's just completely honest, and I found it kind of refreshing. All right, Cheeseman, who do we have next to share with everybody?
Well, let's throw a little rock and roll into this.
Yeah.
So one of the cool guests that they had, just awesome. And I didn't know they were both doing a panel together, was Alice Cooper and Corey Taylor from Slipknot. And they did a panel together, which was really cool. So yeah, we're showing a picture right now of that, and got to talk to them as well. So we will be rolling a couple clips.
Well, let me ask you this real quick. Why were they there? Just for people, why would Alice Cooper and Corey Taylor from Slipknot be in a panel together at a horror convention?
Because they both have kind of, which we'll kind of go into the questions, they both have kind of taken on almost fictional characters as far as their persona on stage, where Alice Cooper's kind of the bad boy, the Count Dracula kind of looking guy there on stage. So he's very horror themed looking, and went on to inspire Kiss and other bands, and even part of the reason they're on stage, Alice Cooper led to Corey Taylor Slipknot. Slipknot's known for wearing new masks for every kind of album they're doing, and maybe even tour, where they look like the serial killers in movies because they're big horror fans. So Slipknot definitely, with the way they dress and everything, definitely relates to the horror genre.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, Alice Cooper was the first shock rocker, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. They needed
Alice
a villain in rock and roll, and he wanted to do that.
Yeah, Alice Cooper, he was the first.
Yeah, Alice Cooper was great. I mean, like when I was a kid, you know, I was raised in a Christian family, I went to church and everything. And so like Alice Cooper was one of those people like, he's one of the worst things ever. He's demonic and everything. Come to find out. He goes to church. He's a church guy himself. And like, this is cool. Luke, I think, you asked him a question here in this clip we're about to show about like, where did Alice Cooper come from? So this is kind of cool.
Yeah. And we have a few questions back to back here. So this will be a longer clip just to let you people know.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Awesome to meet both of you, seeing you both personally. So you guys have both developed very iconic like personalities on stage. Can you tell us about how you kind of came up with your look and this personality and what maybe inspirations in horror or popular culture might have been part of that?
Well, for me, it was the fact that there was no villain in rock and roll. Right. There was a lot of Peter Pans and no Captain Hook. You know, I looked at it and I said, this world needs, well, I can tell you exactly how it happened. We were doing this big show in Toronto, and at the end of the show, we used to open up feather pillows and a CO2 cartridge. It looked like a blizzard. I looked down on the stage, and there's a chicken. Now, I've never been on a farm in my life. It had feathers, it had wings, it should fly. Chickens don't fly as much as they plummet. And so I took the chicken and I threw it out in the audience thinking, well, somebody will take it home and name it Alice and it'll be a great thing. They tore it to pieces. Threw all the pieces back on stage. Next day in the paper, Alice Cooper kills chicken, blah, blah, blah. Frank Zappa called me up and he said, did you kill a chicken on stage? And I went, no. And he said, well, don't tell anybody, they love it. And at that moment I went, rock wants a villain. And that's when I started developing the character Alice Cooper. And I said, well, I'm going to make Alice Cooper my favorite rock star. So anything that and I can talk about him in the third person. We do all the time. We just say, oh, Alice wouldn't say that. Oh, Alice wouldn't wear that. You know, and we treat him that way. That way I can play him at night and not have to be him. So it's so much fun to play a character you're nothing like, you know, and I look forward to that. That's the high point of my day, is getting to play Alice. You know, but as soon as the curtain comes down, he's gone. You know, he doesn't want to live in this world at all. He just wants to live up there on the stage. So I mean, that's how I developed Alice, really.
I mean, it's essentially the same thing. My masks have evolved with every album to kind of reflect the person who I am in that album, mentally, emotionally, whatever. But it's exactly the same way. Like I put that mask on, I'm able to tap into exactly what I'm writing on that album and be able to tap back into that anger, that passion that I had when I was younger, that I don't necessarily carry with me now. But by putting that mask, just that sense of, it's almost like sensory memory. You put that mask back on and you can immediately put yourself in that moment. And then you take the mask off and you can kind of come back and be like, hey, Roy Taylor, dork, how are you? And it works, you know, and you're able to keep it poignant, you're able to keep it very real and relatable because there's no bullshit about it. That person is such a part of you. And then you take it off and you're able to be a more rounded part of you. That person who can sleep at night, that person who can be a great dad without scaring the hell out of the neighbors. You know? It's important to have that because then that persona, that passion lives where it needs to live, which is in that music and helping all of us kind of deal with the frustrations that we deal with in life.
And I think that there's, you know, the three things that belong together on stage: horror, rock and roll, and comedy. I think that if you don't have a comic relief with what you're doing up there, then you paint yourself into a corner. And so I always liked the idea that Alice is this very arrogant, condescending, aristocratic vampire thing, whatever he is. And I would let him slip on a banana peel once in a while. Because I always thought it was funny when somebody was that area, they blow it in front of everybody and have to regain it up. So there's a certain amount of slapstick that you have to put into the show to relieve the audience. You know, I mean, there's a 9-foot baby comes out on stage and you go, what? Just a second ago, he was chopping a baby up. Now there's a 9-foot one trying to kill him. Well, if you're not laughing at that, come on.
I don't know. I think a 9-foot baby would be terrifying.
It is terrifying.
That's a whole other kaiju. Just like, what the shit?
Speaking of horror films, how awesome is it or exciting to get your music into a horror film? It School's Out for Scream or what?
I'll let you go first.
Yeah. No, it really is cool because, you know, it wasn't written for that. All those songs are written for other reasons. Well, Man Behind the Mask was written just for the movie, right? You know. But generally when they take it, they're trying to capture that era. They're trying to capture it, and to me, a lot of times it's funny, you know. Did anybody see King Kong versus Godzilla? What were the Hollies doing at the end? I mean, that was the most. Every song in that.
I hadn't thought of it. But
every song in that movie didn't fit.
Right.
At the very beginning, you're sitting there going, What? But every once in a while, you know, you'll connect up a song with the images of the writer, and that connects up perfectly. It fits perfectly. And yeah, I love hearing my songs on Family Guy, you know, or The Simpsons. I always love that. I always think that's a great compliment that they use your songs, you know.
Muppets.
I can't add anything to that. It's pretty rad, especially when it comes on when you're in the theater. My favorite part, we were in a movie called Rollerball. I don't know if anybody saw that. Yeah. A lot of people called our 28 seconds like the best part of the movie, which I was like, so we're up there, and I remember the day we shot it, we were in Minneapolis. Right? But we were supposed to be in Outer Mongolia. I was like, can anybody find that on a map? I'm not really sure if that's even a thing anymore. But they've got all these weird people like walking by, and they just kept cutting to us. And we were in the theater watching it, right? And as soon as our part was done, half the theater got up and split. Like they were like, all right, what's up? All right, we gotta go. And I was like, are they supposed to do that? That for like a second. It's just weird, you know, because it's different than hearing it on the radio, which is a thrill too. But when you see it in a movie and you're able to put it together with like what the story's going on, it's a thrill, you know. Cool.
Well, people always ask me my favorite horror movie, and they're usually surprised what I say. I think the scariest movie I ever saw was Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
The original Salem's Lot with James Mason and David Soul. There were about maybe 5 or 6 scenes in that movie that were truly scary. The first time you see Barlow, and it's the whole. I mean, I literally took my breath away. It was so, but it was the music in it also, and Hooper directed it. It was brilliant. That movie was so scary. It was made for TV. It wasn't even a theatrical release.
It was a two-parter, right?
Yeah, a two-part thing, and it was going to be the pilot for the series. Right. But it ended up just being that movie, and I'm telling you, go back and watch that movie, and it's truly terrifying. Barlow's scariest vampire ever, by far. Before that, Carnival of Souls. Carnival of Souls, when I was a little kid, scared the hell out of me. And it was just a horrible nightmare. I mean, when they're doing the ballroom dancing, you know, I just went, oh my gosh, that's the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life.
You know, look like the deadness in their eyes is really what sells that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was in black and white, and it just made it even creepier, you know.
I loved it.
I like Jim's commentary in the background. He was bringing sexy back with a yeah. Yeah.
I was kind of like, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I was like? One of Alice Cooper, and we didn't show the clip. One of his favorite performances ever was when he was able to do the Muppet Show.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because he was, and so speaking of Muppet Show, my comments, I sound like Waldorf, the old guy up in the balcony.
Speaking of the microphone, Jim, you're far away again.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Is this better?
There you go. Yeah.
I felt like the old guys in the Muppet Show sitting up there making comments. But no, the thing that was so cool about the Muppet Show experience, and that's the first time I had ever seen Alice Cooper, was when he was on the Muppet Show in the 70s. And I was surprised my parents let me watch that because, again, we thought he was evil. But he even said, do I want to water down the image of Alice Cooper by going on a kid's show? And he goes, well, who else has been on this? And they said, Vincent Price, Christopher Lee. And he goes, all right, I'm in, which is kind of cool. The Muppets were very irreverent. They were subversive back in the day. The Muppets today are a little bit Disney-fied and cleaner and not quite as dangerous as they were back in the 70s. All right. Charlie, I know that you liked this. You really got a kick out of the Alice Cooper session you were talking about.
Yeah, no. One thing that was really neat was like, how like you can just pick up kind of like the vibe of individuals, like whether there's like a positive feeling or a negative feeling, or like some people call it like, oh, it's the energy of a person. Like his was very, very positive. Like there was just a presence about him that was really, really cool. And like hearing him talking about how, because it's like his real name is Vincent, right? And it's like how he created, Alice, and he was even thinking like, oh, well, the name Alice, it's like a contrast for the image itself. And so that was just really neat to hear him talking about like the fact that he's putting on a performance, and it's like it's a character that he's playing. And then everything just kind of also, I think about him being a guy whose spiritual life is such a contrast from his art. But it's like how he really does kind of merge he's someone who can do both. And it's like, for me, that was very inspiring because I know artists a lot of the time they get bogged down, or at least in the past, I've gotten bogged down with like thinking about how do I handle is this an ethical issue, or is how do I treat my art? How is it going to impact people? Should I do this or whatever? And it's just like, just tell the truth, with it, be authentic, be true to what you're trying to do with it. And I think I found him very inspiring. Like I found him very cool and very inspiring. And so that to me was neat. And I wasn't expecting that. So, I mean, like his reputation preceded him, obviously, and I respect his art, but that was like the first time I felt some kind of connection, like on a personal level to him. So
what about you, Luke?
Yeah, it was cool to kind of see both of them in person, and I agree with those things. And even like with Corey Taylor, I mean, you look at Slipknot and think it's like, oh no, like he's gonna corrupt my children or do all, like you just think he's like he's basically, he looks like a serial killer. He looks like one of these Jason, Freddy, all those kind of things from the movies. But like kind of like Rob Zombie, he's just kind of like a regular dude that just like is a super nerd about horror and other stuff. Like when you see them in person or talk to them, and there's like a humility with both of them, just kind of on just being there. And they're almost like, it felt like we're one of you guys. We were fans of stuff. We like they didn't act like they were like above anybody. They seemed very down to earth, which I thought was very cool.
Loved it. We just have two more clips here towards the end. And Luke, you want to set up the first one for us?
Yeah, so we are going into our Friday the 13th segment. So Jim, tell us who the two great people we had on the panel.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. They had Warrington Gillette. He played Jason back in Friday the 13th Part 2. You guys remember that's the one when Jason basically had like a sack on his head. He had not yet, because for a lot of people don't realize is Jason never got the hockey mask until Part 3 in 3D. And that's when he got the hockey mask. So Part 2, he just had a sack on his head. By the way, Part 2 is my favorite Friday the 13th of the entire series. So it was really cool to see Warrington Gillette. He was on the stage with Mr. C.J. Graham, who has become him and Kane Hodder have become two of the most famous Jasons of the series. But C.J. Graham he came in Part 6. Basically, he was zombie Jason. Like when Jason was dead and killed in Part 5, but he comes back. He's hit by a lightning bolt, and he comes out of the ground dripping of maggots and worms, and he's zombie Jason. But he was huge. He had kind of changed. Jason got a lot bigger. So this is a cool little clip we have in the panel featuring the two Jasons.
What was your favorite kill that you did as Jason?
Mine's real simple. I always tell the same, the sheriff.
Yes!
Yes.
Send it like that.
I always think about Fluffy in part 2. Anyway, but you know, there's no blood, there's no guts, it's pure power, pure force, pure just, I mean, maybe you can't imagine that, but I can. Just, it's total terror, so you can take a body and break it into pieces like that. Powerful, no blood, no guts, just a snap.
And you like that?
I think it's cool.
How long have you had that problem?
I just have respect.
And when they let you out?
It was recently. Me and my buddy Tom Allen got out recently.
Well, I'm glad you got out.
So were they.
You still on furlough?
No, but I'm on meds.
Okay, you're on probation. He's on probation. I mean, for me to answer your question, many chapters ago, but I think the scene backwards in the wheelchair down the staircase is pretty intense. Yeah. And I feel bad because the guy that was in the chair, he did pass away at a young age. So that was that. I don't know. And I don't like messing around with things in wheelchairs because it's not a good idea. Poor Christopher Reeves plays a handicapped guy in a wheelchair. And then next thing you know, he's on a horse in Middleburg, Virginia. The horse refuses. He goes over the head of the horse, and he becomes in this state. So that was not whatever, but that was shocking situation. Anyway, I think the couple in the bed getting impaled in the heat of the moment. Yeah, that's a little rough. No. Yeah, that's a little rough. You don't expect that.
It seems like the great titans of terror all came from the 80s and maybe some from the 90s. Do you guys think there's anything to we still want Jason, we still want Michael, we still want Freddy, but what's today? Do you guys think there's anything out there that fulfills what Jason did for all these years?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're trying to tell the story again with another backdrop, another story. What do you call it? Wildly successful, or these other new ones, or Get Out. That's grossing $350 million, but they're still selling Shock and all, and I don't know. You have a sympathetic vigilante in the mix, and people are going to root for him. And so you just, there's only so many foundations of storytelling. But you got to create a hero, a sympathetic hero that folks are going to root for.
One thing we've learned again going back 30 years, everybody remembers Harry Potter? Yeah. The storyline started from A to Z. Jason never did that, nor Michael Myers. It was kind of bits and pieces. To sit down and put together a storyline of connectivity from theoretically part 6 on, put 3 in the can in the box, that have some connectivity, maybe using the same Jason, different directors, but each one of them has to be connected like the Harry Potter series. I think it's a great opportunity for them to rethink, recalibrate how the technology is advanced, how people advanced. I think the second side of your question, if I understood you correctly, was, are there others? All the different things. All we can do is take a look and see what happens in 40 years. Today, they're hugely successful, and
I think today is also, it's a lot more competitive to sell an entertainment item, because kids today don't even have televisions. Right. They don't even want a television if they're in college. Okay? And social media. Have you ever seen they start sending you a memo of how many hours that you were on the phone today? Yeah. What? And you look at that number, you go, God, how could I have been on that thing for 4 hours? What?
So the social media is captivating this and people's time, and the video gaming, and the Grand Theft Autos that are grossing $1 billion. What? I mean, so it is a whole other world other than, you know, say a couple going out on date night to the movies. And I don't even know the state now to actually go into a theater. I don't even know, but that might take maybe another year for people to actually go out and go to the theater. I don't know. So I think our trends are changing.
And date night, we should look at our phones now. Hey, baby, how you doing?
Yeah, people don't even talk anymore. People don't get on the phone anymore. It's texting. Honey, I don't love you anymore. I want a divorce. What? I don't love you either. You gotta cry. All it is texting. Ever did anybody here break up on a text? Just me. God, crazy time we're in.
That was cool. It's kind of cool to listen to Warrington talk about what it was like back in the 80s. You guys have any takeaways from that panel?
The reminiscing.
Yeah. I love it.
No, it's just really cool to hear them talk about, because they did a lot of juxtaposition between their two films and playing the character, but with different directors and with slightly different visions and a slightly different approach. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting how they broke that down and they contrasted those things. I think it was it was obviously the idea of okay, the power and this, but it kind of with the Saw films, it has become, at least from my perspective, the Friday the 13th series became okay, what new and interesting ways can we take out people? Yeah. So, and utilize the character, and they talked about that a bit.
I agree. It's kind of like what you were talking about. These films, these series, they seem to be better toward the beginning, and then gradually they just become money grabs. Of I'm not a big fan of torture porn. I don't like this endless gore. But I love 80s horror, as it says on my hats, because I love the schlocky, funny, just ridiculousness of Jason movies. Cheeseman, do you have any thoughts before we jump into our final interview here?
I think one of the funniest parts of the panel, which didn't really exactly didn't have to do with the movies, when a couple of guys walked in late and CJ Graham kind of gave them crap. Oh, yeah. And made a joke about them coming in late and doing all that. And then he said kind of into the microphone, yeah, they might try to beat me up after, but if they beat me up, they beat up some old guy, and there's some punk or something like that. But he's but then if I beat them up, then then they got their asses beat by an old guy. So he's either way, they're probably not going to mess with me so I can kind of just say whatever I want to people who walk in the panels. So I thought it was kind of funny, just him just kind of messing with the people there, kind of in a playful way. And we saw the guys after, and they seemed to love that he was just kind of poking at the audience there. So he's very warm and welcoming to the fans there.
Our final interview is my favorite that we're going to share tonight, and I think this one. And Luke and Charlie got this interview. Charlie was the cinematographer. Luke was the interviewer, and this one was amazing. Celebrating its 40th anniversary, American Werewolf in London is just one of those classic films. It's one of those classic films that has defined a generation. What's so crazy is when I looked for the poster, every single poster had this picture of the face of the werewolf, but then David Naughton, he has a famous running around without his clothes scene in the movie, and every single poster has that on it. What, Luke?
I don't think I've seen that side butt poster before.
That's the only poster I was trying to find the official poster of American Werewolf in London, and this is the one that was up everywhere.
If only the masterpiece of terror was a little lower to his butt there, and then it would be yeah.
So, from the director of Animal House, A Different Kind of Animal, which is funny because American Werewolf in London, it was one of those films that was kind of like a horror comedy. I thought it was more horror than comedy. It was a very strange film, but 1981, two American college students on a walking tour of Britain are attacked by a werewolf that none of the locals will admit exists. The now legendary writer and director John Landis was the one who directed. This was his film, and it's now one of the films that they credit with starting this move into realistic prosthetics for transformation of werewolves. He started a whole move, and here's David right here. David, during the beginning of this transformation into this werewolf here. A little bit of trivia. Do you guys know the pop singer who also used John Landis for a video?
Was it Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
John Landis directed the Michael Jackson Thriller video, and he utilized the same prosthetics techniques in there to transform Michael Jackson into a werewolf. Michael Jackson was such a fan of American Werewolf in London. Very cool. Is there anything you guys want to say to introduce this interview?
Well, I will say that Michael Jackson in the Thriller music video looks a lot like the Werecats in Scooby-Doo on Solid Island.
That one or this one?
Well, the first one. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. Anyway, but yeah, that's a bit of a throwback there. So.
That's cool.
But it's a great music video, obviously.
Luke, anything to introduce our interview with David Naughton?
I will just say, you gotta go meet him in person. He was very friendly, and because I talked to him, hey, do you want to come on our podcast? And he's like, well, might be easier. You just talk to me here. So, and
right.
He's like, I'll be here tomorrow. Come find me, and we'll talk. So, I went up, and we were able to do a nice 7-minute interview with him there in person. So. If you get a chance to meet him in person, I would definitely recommend that. He's also on social media, and he was very interested in seeing the video of him, so we'll be sending it to him as well. But
cool.
Yeah, this is David Naughton of American Werewolf in London.
Hey, it's Cheeseman here at the Days of the Dead convention here in Las Vegas. I am honored to be here with David Naughton right now of An American Werewolf in London, which is now celebrating 40 years this August. How does it feel being part of something, and did you ever think this film would be as popular as it is 40 years later?
Wow. Did you say 40 years? Hey, that's 1981. Let me do the math. No, it is, and I feel every day of it. But no, to answer your question, who knew? Who knew 40 years ago that we'd be, I'll meet you in Vegas in 40 years and we'll talk about this movie. So, no, quite honestly, we knew we were onto something particularly special. Rick Baker he was an unknown makeup artist at the time. Of course, he's gone on to win 7 Academy Awards. The first one was this movie. And John Landis was certainly a very successful director at the time we made it. And but you never really know what kind of, longevity a film might have.
Now, what was it like working with John Landis?
It's fun. You got to be ready to be told jokes, to be the butt of jokes, to be he's such a good director, knowledgeable about what he wants. He's one of the fastest directors I've ever worked with, quite honestly. He sees it, he's ready to move on. You go, wait a second, that was just the first take. I got what I need. Very quick, and that's good, and also. Makes you a little insecure as an actor going, I think I could do another one if we got time.
Now, it's my favorite werewolf movie, and I think it's going to be hard to beat. It's like the Jaws of shark movies. Now, you have one of the most iconic transformation scenes. It's just and as a filmmaker, it's so iconic, the special effects and groundbreaking of what happened. What was it like doing that scene, and did you know this was something new and cutting edge that you're doing special effects-wise?
Well, it certainly was new because there wasn't anyone I could call up and go, hey, so I'm working with this guy, Rick Baker. What am I in for? In fact, the first time I met him, when I went over to his studio, John Landis hires me and goes, you got to get right over to Rick Baker's studio because he has to start on the makeup. Well, as soon as I got there, he goes, what role are you playing? I said, I'm playing David Kessler. He goes, I feel sorry for you. That was Rick Baker saying that to me. So it's like, what do you mean? What am I in for? And I found out, as they say the hard way, started all the molds and the processes, the preliminary makeup, which took a while, but it was the actual application of the makeup once we were on set that took days to shoot. And it was an experience that I won't forget and not ready to do again.
Now, what was your favorite thing about the film, the product or your character? What are you most proud of about being part of this movie?
Well, in terms of from my standpoint as an actor, was really knowing that it was an interesting story which I could resonate with, as far as a guy who I thought always had sort of a terminal condition. The fact that he was going to turn into a werewolf made it supernatural, but nevertheless, as an actor, it was something that I was in total denial about, and saying, no, this isn't going to happen to me, and that was sort of a help. I also wanted to sell that makeup. That makeup was particularly fantastic. We were so impressed in the process of it, saying, what's this? And we were all curious as to how it was going to look on film. When I say all of us, Rick especially, and John, of course, and myself, and knowing that we had a lot to live up to and to try to sell it, which hopefully we did.
Now, this film has such a legacy. Again, like we said, 40 years of American Werewolf in London. What has been your experience here at conventions like this and just around with the whole fandom?
It's always been very interesting and entertaining, and one of the things I enjoy doing it. I mean, this certainly impacted my life. It changed my life, this experience of being in this movie. And I find out that a lot of fans had a similar experience in terms of how it changed and impacted their lives. Either it introduced them to horror. Many people wanted to get into special effects and props or makeup themselves, or understanding prosthetics and doing all the latex and processes that Rick started, and so it's impacted a lot of people in a lot of ways, more than I'd ever imagined. And you find that out when you come to a show like this.
And as a show, and as a podcast, we're all about, attractions and things going on. And American Werewolf in London had an attraction there at Universal Studios where they had one of their haunted houses attractions based on American Werewolf in London. Did you see that, hear about it? It was an amazing attraction, and the effects, of course, there were amazing as well.
Yeah, I did. I went to the Universal Hollywood maze, as they were calling them, on a haunted nights. What was it called? Yeah, Hollywood Horror Nights. Yes, and it was fascinating. I thought they did such a great job. I remember going through it for the first time with John and Rick, and trying to get the actors' attention who were playing me. They wouldn't give us the time of day. Now, I'm not sure they could see us, but I had to be reminded that, oh yeah, they won't necessarily recognize that we're the guys they're playing.
Now, there's a big news of a NECA figure that's coming out because of the 40th anniversary. Is there anything you can tell us about the NECA figure that's coming out?
No, other than just as a fan, I can't wait for it. I can't wait to see it. I've seen photos of it, but yeah, I'm going to be standing in line for that one.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll be signing lots of those. So if people want to meet you, or is there anything upcoming, or if people want to do cameos or autographs or different things to get a hold of you, how do they?
As we're coming out of the pandemic, there is life again after COVID-19. So slowly shows are coming back. I'm excited about that. I've certainly had to, like everyone, adjust to it and coming back to the new life after post-COVID. So I look forward to seeing fans. They can certainly look on Instagram, and there are those web pages. I'm not sure exactly where I'll be. I know I'll be in Seattle in August at Seattle Comic-Con. But so far, we're just keeping our fingers crossed that everything opens back up.
Well, as a fan, a podcaster, it's just been amazing, and a filmmaker, it's been amazing to meet you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for this interview, and it's been an honor.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Great interview, guys. You guys did so good in that. Cheeseman, we are bumping up here at the end of the show, but any thoughts on talking with David?
It was a great conversation, as you could see. He was just super chill, very humble, and sounded like he was a fan of the movie as well, and just collecting things, which you don't always hear. A lot of people be like, well, I didn't really get much from set, or I don't really have too much of this stuff, but it sounded like, this means a lot to him, and, meeting the people and this fandom being explored further 40 years later. I mean, no one knew fandom was going to take off like this, especially back in the day. Now it's kind of written in the contracts and other things as people are doing shows, but back then people had no idea the legacy that these films would have.
Charlie, any closing thoughts on your time interviewing David Naughton, or anything else about the show?
Yeah, I'm just really glad I got to say that I gave David Naughton a little direction. So, by making him clear his table of debris, so, like he had his water bottle, his chips, and everything. I'm like, hey, can we move that? He was really gracious, really cool with us, and then just like where we stood, because I wanted to make sure we get that poster in the background and stuff. So that was really cool, and he was really cool to us, and a great guy. And overall, I would say, talking to him or being there with Luke, talking to him, talking to, seeing the ET panel. So Henry Thomas, Robert Naughton, and Dee Wallace, that was huge. And then Alice Cooper. So those were kind of my main highlights. And then also I would say the Jaws stuff too. So seeing, what's her name again, at the beginning, Susan. Yeah. So that was awesome. So really cool.
Well, Charlie and Cheeseman, thank you guys for helping us all to put on this great show. Thank you to Junior Felix and that hashtag show for sending us over to Days of the Dead. Days of the Dead it's kind of a smaller convention. It's the fans love this convention. It's got a very, very active fan base. I guess it's the small convention with a big punch. And one more thing. For those of you who are wondering, we didn't just fly to Vegas or drive to Vegas. We drove from Los Angeles and just sit in a convention hall, although that was great. We also had a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
For those of you who are listening, we did go up to Caesars, go up to their Montecito, I think it's the Montecito Cigar Lounge. That's our buddy Jeff Swingle sitting there with us, enjoying the last night there in Vegas. Guys, thank you so much. You can find me here at thescareguy.com. You can find me on Instagram at James D. Fry. Charlie, where can people find you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, I mean, just check out Urban Owl Entertainment on YouTube. I do a little bit of social media. I'm not too big into that. So, but yeah, just check out my stuff there, and follow these guys because they're awesome.
And we hope to have Charlie on some more. Cheeseman, where can we find you and take us out, man?
Yeah, you may not be into social media now, but you will be. Especially if you're going to be an upcoming filmmaker and writer and all that. So,
oh, amen, dude. I claim that.
Yeah. So also screenwriter. Yes. So also a screenwriter here, Cheeseman. You can find me on thescareguy.com and also on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Cheese on Couch. And yeah, it was so cool being back at a convention. Support your local conventions. Yep. Support the things you're fans of. I mean, these people have to make a living as well, and you being a fan and going to meet them helps them keep the dreams alive and keep your dreams alive of meeting these awesome people. So thanks for watching, and follow Days of the Dead. There's going to be more stuff coming up as they visit different cities and similar panels. It's always better in person, so
that's right.
Go there.
See you guys soon.